making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome. It is tea time with Miss Liz again, and we are here with evening tea. So if you are home and it is evening, wherever you are tuning in, please grab your tea, grab your hot beverage, and tune in and get your questions and comments ready. And let's support the incredible guest that I have joining me tonight on Tea Time. Tonight, I have an incredible producer, director, and author from Hollywood, veteran from Hollywood, who will be sharing on Time Out children's books. So, a little bit on Rachel Nee Hall and the disclaimer, and then we will jump in and serve and spill the TEA tonight on Tea Time with Miss Liz. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Times live show. Miss Liz is going live myself using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward to any of my Tea Time shows hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participation are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions of for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion, forms only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in the show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. Should you decide that the show at this time is not made for you, I will see you at a future show at a later date. And now I'm going to bring up the incredible Rachel Nee Hall, and I'm going to introduce her. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much for having me. Now, it's when you mentioned hot beverage, I thought to myself, no, not here, because it's about 100 degrees in Los Angeles. So I think I'll stick with iced tea if that's okay.
Well, iced tea is good, right? The iced tea and Long Island iced tea is good.
Yes.
Any kind of tea is good.
Yes.
But we really don't need to have any drinks right now because it is hot here too in Canada. So, Rachel, I really want to thank you for joining me. So, a little bit to the viewers and listeners out there. I'm just going to read a little intro of Rachel, and then we will get into these incredible books called Time Out. So, Rachel Nee Hall is a veteran director and producer of Hollywood. As a member of the Director Guild of America for nearly 20 years, Rachel has directed and produced countless television shows, including Dr. Phil, Entertainment Tonight, The New Ricky Lake Show, The Doctors, and Ivana. Ilana.
It's a tough one.
That's a hard one, right? That's a tongue twister. And Fix My Life for the Oprah Winfrey Network. Rachel also spent a decade in front of the cameras, honoring her writing and producing skills as a news anchor, reporter, and producer for CBS owned and operated news stations across the country. Incredible bio. If you'd like to know more on Rachel, you can check out her full bio on Miss Liz's Tea Times Facebook page or her my LinkedIn page. So, Rachel, now it's your turn. I'm giving the floor to you. So, how did it all start, and what are these Time Out books?
Well, the Time Out books were actually a fruition of a personal experience that I had. I had an acquaintance whose husband was incarcerated for a time, and she had two youngish children who she wanted to bring into prison to see the father, but she could only bring one in at a time. So she asked if I could come along, and so we drove, and when we got there, she was able to take one child in. So I sat with the other child. He happened to be a younger boy, I'm going to say maybe he was 7.
Oh, wow.
And at the most, maybe even younger, enough to know something's not normal. And, it's hard, I think, to really open the floor and have clear communication when you're in it, because undoubtedly, I am not going to speak for this particular woman, but undoubtedly a person is going to feel some anger, some resentment toward the spouse, shame, confusion, all these emotions. And so it's really hard to find the words that are perhaps not pejorative, perhaps that aren't, over the, too sophisticated. And yet 1 in 12 or some 6 million American children under the age of 18 have had a parent incarcerated.
Wow.
So that could mean jail, prison, other just, out of the home, and, could be a halfway house where they can't be, accessed, lots of things. But that's a lot of lives that are impacted by something that they had nothing to do with.
Exactly.
And that is the plight of a child, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have untold power, whether we like it or not, over their emotional development, their emotional health. So getting back to why I wrote the book, the friend of mine was gone for probably 30 minutes. And I remember this uncomfortable, and I knew this child pretty well. I wasn't a stranger. And I tried to open up the conversation. How are you feeling? Is this upsetting? All these things that were not working, by the way. I could just see this happening. Because he undoubtedly had all the feelings that I thought perhaps a spouse would have about a person who is incarcerated. Pissed off. I don't get it. What did you do? Why am I being impacted? So understandably angry. So I'm thinking, I'm kind of looking around, there are a couple People magazines and some things around, people left behind a book. And I'm like, is there a pamphlet to guide somebody on how to talk to a child around this age? And there wasn't. And I was like, well, there sure should be. And I actually did use the timeout. It's obviously a parent technique. The timeout strategy or, example analogy with him. And I said, gosh, it's really hard when people do things where they just need time to sit back and, like a timeout, right? Like you probably have a timeout.
I loved it. I love the name timeout. Like, we all need timeouts.
Listen, Liz, it wasn't a genius idea. It was, a need that obviously needed to be filled. And because I told a friend about this, I said, gosh, it was just so uncomfortable. And I wanted to say something wise and comforting and something that would make him feel better. And I just, so, of course I came home and Googled and saw nothing.
Well, that's what, even when I was doing the research leading up to this tea time, there's nothing out there.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking because, as I said, a lot of children have been dealing with this throughout their lives, and it does have long-term impact. I am still very close with the children who I sort of wrote these books for, and they're adults, and they feel impact. It's not like daddy's out. There was a divorce, not surprisingly. Daddy's out, and they're trying to have a relationship, but going through that as a child and having that shame, like, dad can't come to the parent-teacher conference. Why? Dad can't go to the father-daughter dance. Why? All of these things, right? I mean, I would imagine very much like losing a parent. This whole, of course, is shame.
Well, it's part of a grief, right? Because your life is being changed.
Yes, there is grief involved, and that is one thing that I know one of the children tells me about. So the timeout book, it had been sitting in the back door, in the back of my brain for, I don't know, 10 some years, and pandemic hit. And as you know, I'm a television producer. I'm usually very, very, very busy.
Yeah.
And like everyone, it was either eat and drink for 2 years or be productive. And so I thought, good golly, I'm going to just see if I can do this. And thankfully, a publisher had heard about my idea and said, yes, let's do this. So it wasn't a self-publish or anything. So that was a beautiful gift. But I did consult with many experts, judges, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and people that had gone through this experience. And so I wrote the stories to where I thought I would want to read this to my child if I were in this situation. And it passed muster. So I feel really confident that it's a healthy and it's not a harmful. It's very, it's written for the mind of a 3 to 6-year-old who wants to just be taken out of their current situation. So we're not talking about them. We are sharing a story about a bunny, or a sea otter who's gone through this, or a puppy. And it's just from what I can tell is really, really, really helpful in speaking to these children and letting them know that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss the parent or the father or the mother. I have a mama's timeout. I have a peanuts timeout, and that's for a sibling or a cousin or somebody who's, not necessarily a parental figure, but it's important in their lives. Yeah. And I made them, very specific for those particular needs. And I think it's been very, very effective.
So which one was the first one that you wrote, Rachel?
The first one was Daddy's Timeout.
So it was Daddy's.
Yeah. And that was because that personal experience where my friend's children had a daddy who was gone for years. Yeah. And then, we've all, I don't know a lot of people have been incarcerated, but I sure do for one reason or another. And I've known mommies that have gone away for a time to get better. I've known big brothers and big sisters who spend extended times away, incarcerated. So that's where I really thought I needed all three. So, the thing that people perhaps forget is that children who are impacted by incarceration, whether it's parents or a sibling or whatever, and this is documented, are twice as likely to have behavioral or mental and emotional health problems during their development. And that includes aggression. So there's where we get that secular, mommy and daddy were in jail, and then all of a sudden something, aggression, depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. This is not a light topic. This is
no. This is not.
That is extremely important to address head on. And, again, it's for a younger child, but imagine a younger child that somebody's just like, well, let's just sweep this under the carpet, and daddy went on a vacation. And then later finds out, no, daddy did not go on a vacation.
Yeah.
Or, if they take them somewhere, and then most of the time, the other spouse is going to take the children to visit most of the time. So again, this confusion can just fester and really, really come out, like a big old ugly cyst somewhere else in their life. And since you talk about trauma
Yeah,
And then this certainly is a form of childhood trauma.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like where I want this book isn't for everybody, but where I would love to see this book is obviously in the lobbies of prisons and jails, and but in the back of a social worker's truck when
Absolutely, right?
daddy or mommy has been taken away by the police, or possibly even in, I mean, obviously in therapist's office. But I also think that in a school library, because there are a lot of children who are maybe a little bit older and don't know how to reach out for help. And again, the other parent perhaps is not in an emotional position to give healthy dialogue, So
Yeah.
I would like for for school counselors to know about it. So that's my goal. I just want these out in as many hands as they can help.
Well, I
And
think it would be really interesting to have it in the libraries, Rachel, like you said, because sometimes kids don't want to open up and share, right? So if they
exactly,
see this in the library, they can grab it themselves and they can read the story and say, hey, this is how I feel. I can
right,
resonate with this. I can relate to this,
right.
because they don't want to open up, right? Because it is a grief. It is. And do you feel that there's more trauma being done by lying to the child and saying daddy or mommy's gone on vacation, and then they come out and 10 years later they find out daddy and mommy weren't on vacation, you
Well,
know?
I'm not a therapist, but I've spoken to many, and their feeling is absolutely, and that surprisingly, and this is what I've gotten was, I can't believe this isn't out already. Like, where has this
Yeah.
been? And so, I mean, I'm really happy. It's funny how things that impact your life that happen even decades before, it can come, you can take that seed and grow something really beautiful and helpful, and that's what happened to me. So I
But
hope it can do some good.
well, you actually took your personal, your personal view on it because you were part of it. You were in that circle, right? So you were
Exactly.
like, I can't find any information on this. So how do I fix it? I get the information out there. I
Right,
create it,
right.
and I think that's why we need to really start opening the doors when we see that things are not out there. Because like before this tea time, I was doing a lot of research and I was like, there's nothing out there. There's nothing for these kids. Why
Hmm.
isn't there anything out there?
Hmm.
And that's what drew me to your books right away, was because it's so different and it's so much educational awareness, right? And it's
Well,
playful and it's opening the eyes of children, and I think children should be able to read stories like these. I know that they are hard to read and they are not made for all the children out there, but the children that are actually experiencing it, it's an outlet for them to go to without even going to an adult. They can actually just sign the library book out and say, hey, it resonates with me.
well, it's interesting that you say that it would be hard to read, because it really isn't. Like, first we're getting this really great adorable bunny, right? Hi, my name is Niblet, what's yours? Nice to meet you. What are some of your favorite things to do? So you're engaging the child. We're not reading at it. Niblet is talking to this child, and Niblet's going to share how his bunny daddy did
It would
something.
even make a good bedtime story.
It actually it's a very sweet story. And I mean, and the happy ending is not that daddy's out and it's
Yep.
all there's nothing like that, but it's one day I'll see him again and I will tell him it's okay, sometimes daddies need a timeout too. So it's it just
It kind of lightens the load.
it really does. It makes it, and also it's not a, they don't have to take it upon themselves. This is, oh, my friend Niblet has the same problem. Oh, interesting. And then there are also inside, there are question prompts for, because I mean, I try to remember my dad, if my dad would have read me, or tried to tell me something like, even if he had read this book. My dad was an old 50s guy, and
Old school.
old school. And and he would not have known the proper follow-ups.
Yeah.
And so again, with the help of therapists, and there's a way to gently open that door and see if that child will start to open up. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will the third time they read it.
Yeah.
But again, because the illustrations, and I take no credit for the illustrations other than they were my ideas, but I don't paint. But these illustrations are very detailed, and it really gives them a lot to look at.
It's really beautiful. Like it's real. Even the wording, the letters are nice and big.
Yeah.
And, so if you have trouble seeing, if you know.
Yeah. And actually, it's almost to the point. There aren't super big words in here in terms of sophistication. This can be something the child can read to you at one point. It can be a learning book too, right? So learning to read books. So I just think they're beautiful. And as I said, I take very little credit other than I had the gumption to make it happen. But I really hope that they do some good. I'm proud of the way they turned out.
So have you done any research like to write the books and that? And how long did it take you to write these books for the viewers and listeners out there that are listening?
Well, the actual stories, I write for a living, so I don't write books, but I, write scripts and documentaries, and I used to write news stories. Writing is not the issue, but it was very important to put myself into the mindset of, let's say, a 4-year-old. And having raised 2 kids, that wasn't too difficult. And I love kids. I love kids. I kind of can't wait for grandchildren. Don't tell me.
Grandkids are the best.
Oh, my God. So it's just that and the research, I mean, it was just stunning to me. I think that how many people the research and the statistics regarding the amount of children who are impacted, and particularly the amount of children of color, Native American, African American. I mean, it's exponentially. It's shocking, is what it is. And that's the reason why I chose animals. Animals, to me, they kind of have no gender in here. They certainly don't have a race. They have a species.
Well, I kind of like that you use the animals because we always connect with a pet, right? A lot of people will connect.
Yes, and certainly a child. And listen. My goal was not to get into politics with this. In terms of, we understand there's a mass incarceration and there's definitely exponentially uneven in terms of race, and whether or not people should be incarcerated at all, for a first-time felon, whatever it is. The politics are not the point. It really is about saving the children, saving their emotional health, protecting them.
Yeah, I honestly think that by writing children's books, I'm noticing this a lot with the harder subjects, reading out the openness in children's books. It's playful. It also brings the inner child in an adult out as well, because as much as we say we don't want to read a children's book. Yeah, we do. We want to read something that's easy. We want to read something that's playful. And, with grandkids and that, you want to have something that you can read to them and explain to them about life. And I find children's books has really done that. I'm noticing a lot of books that are coming out are children's books with the hardest topics. And they're bringing in the animal characters and that. I had Carmen Swift on, who was with the Blind Foundation, and she wrote a children's book about a little ducky, and Pico the ducky. It was just, he had trouble seeing and stuff like that. So it's playful. It opens the eyes, right? It opens up the mindset of, can I look at this a different way, a different perspective, right?
I think the goal is to normalize it so that a child feels less isolated, and that they understand that, a good friend, my duck, whatever that duck's name was, it's so cute.
I'll have to connect you two, because I'm sure you guys would love to connect.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that it really is about making sure that they feel not, you know, so that they don't feel isolated
Yeah.
from up here, and that they're maybe perhaps open to talking about it. You know, yeah, where's your father? Maybe that's what normalizes it. Well, you know, he did a few things that the judge didn't like, and so now he's going to go in a timeout. I was in a timeout yesterday because whatever, I stole a cookie and I shouldn't, whatever, I
Yeah.
mean, it's really important to make them not feel isolated.
Yeah. And I really like the title. I like the timeout, you know, because we can all resonate with timeout. We all need some timeout sometimes,
We
you
sure
know.
do. And
So sometimes we just need to be leave me alone. Like it's timeout time.
100%. And a mother, I've heard more than one, and perhaps maybe even myself, if I really, really dig deep, have said, look, I need a timeout, and you go in your bedroom, you lock the door. It's not necessarily a punishment. It's a
Yeah.
time for reflection, right?
Yep.
And I mean, in a perfect world, that's what prison is about. It's about rehabilitation, which is reflection. It's retraining yourself to make better choices,
Yeah.
and all of these things are something that we need to teach our children very, very early, so
Yeah.
that they are conditioned to stop, take a deep breath before they react, just like any adult needs to.
Right. Sometimes we just time
Yeah.
out.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think it really speaks to the entire issue. Yeah.
And you mentioned here about the adverse
Well,
childhood experiences.
mhm.
So for the listeners out there that don't know about that, could you explain a little bit more about that, Rachel?
Sure, sure. It's a psychological, it's a certified title for an experience that most of us have had. Whether it's you were in a terrible car accident, or God forbid you were molested, anything that is adverse to what would be the ideal upbringing, which, God love you, none of you have had.
Yeah.
Many of us have been very close, right? But we all have some adverse childhood experiences that impacts us, that wires us in a certain way, and it will impact our behavior in the future. Now, we can intercept it, and things like this help intercept it.
Yep.
Later on, we could get therapy and help rewire our behaviors and our thought patterns. But if you really dig deep, you have had an adverse childhood, or excuse me, an adverse childhood experience.
I
And
think we all have, right?
yeah, yeah,
If we're
and
being honest with ourselves, I think we all have gone through something that
it could be
has caused,
bullying,
right?
as a third grader.
Exactly.
Anything and it's funny. I don't know about you, but all the sort of nasty things that have happened to me, and nothing compared to. I'm so blessed. But let's say a kid teasing me for having frizzy hair, or whatever it was, fat, whatever it was.
Or the big bell bottoms that are back in style now.
Yeah, I mean, just the bullying,
Yep.
um, it's almost as if it's like a negative of a film. It just imprints on your brain. Like you can remember how the senses, you can remember how that child smelled, you can remember how the hair was sweaty against, it makes an impression. And so the idea is to be able to not necessarily, you're not going to forget the impression, but you are going to rework the way that impacts you. And so again, these are just what so many of us need to do or have done to help ourselves function in the world.
Yeah. I really think that we need to start opening up, right? Because everyone has gone through some form of trauma in their life. If you're really being honest with yourself, you know, somebody close to you, somebody, it has impacted your life in a change, in a matter. Even just the COVID, the pandemic has affected so many people's lives. children's lives, education. The education has really been, we've lost a lot of education during pandemic because we gotten a lot of more bonding with family members and stuff like that. But I found that the educational systems have really hurt because the children are confused. They're homeschooled, they're not homeschooled, they're, back to school, then not to school, then, there's so much going on that these children, and I don't understand why there's not enough information out there. Like I said, like your books are the first that I see that is hitting this topic and seeing and bringing awareness to incarceration, because we don't see anything out there. And why isn't there any? Are people scared to get it out there? I'm not sure. But maybe some of the viewers and listeners out there, if you have the answers, you could let us know, and reach out to me and Rachel, and maybe we can get more information out there. But I'd really love to get Rachel's books out there. So Rachel, if anybody would like to get these books, where could they find them?
Well, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, my website, which is just Rachel Nehall, one word, author, Rachel Nehall, author.
Okay.
.com. They're really easy to find. I think if you Google them, there's been a fair amount of press on them. Yeah, I mean, please do. Get back. I want to touch, if I may.
Oh yeah, sure.
Before, and that is why people have a hard time, because communication needs to be taught. Open communication, clear communication, non-aggressive communication, non-passive aggressive communication needs to start when a child is very young. Yeah. And they're learning from a parent who may have a broken sense of communication. Nobody likes to have a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
But that is the only way that we can all grow, and also, I might add, not injure each other. Because even a parent who perhaps the child has this somewhat idyllic life because the parent wants to protect them, but since the parent has not dealt with their trauma, they are via osmosis, whether they mean to or not, impacting that child. And it can't be just like I can't deal with this right now. I don't want to talk to it. That's where you create an emotionally intelligent person. Okay, to be book learned is one thing, but what get you farther in life is to be emotionally intelligent, and that is learned. Yep. That is modeled,
and it takes repetition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may seem corny, you just sit down at the maybe your ritual is, we have dinner at 5:00 and we go around and we talk about our day. And of course, kids are going to go like, oh, I don't do this, but you got to stay on it.
Yeah.
Right? You have to let them know that you are the safe set of ears. And so again, it's really important to know how to react to a kid who might say something very troubling to you. Could be, well, I hate school and I'm going to drop out. It's not, you can't be reactive.
Yeah.
You have to be very engaged and help them come to the realization that maybe that's not the best idea. And that's where I find a lot of parents make a mistake. They tend to tell their children what to do instead of, number one, modeling the best behavior, and number two, letting them come to the decision themselves that, I wonder, have you thought about approaching it this way? And so, again, it's all about communication. And
right.
And that's where I'm hoping, the little discussion prompts in the book, if a parent who's not real comfortable with communication, or a grandma or a grandpa, will be able to literally just, read it off the page and have the child interact with you.
And I think that's like you're mentioning supper time, dinner time, the open conversation. I find that a lot of families are not even doing that anymore. Why are we not having that open discussion? Why are we not asking our kids, how was your day? How was school? Did you make a new friend? So I think this is a perfect time to ask you, Rachel, what is your tea?
Oh, well, my tea. So I'm about engaging tomorrow's enlightened activists. I my side job, no, not my side job, my real job. I do as much activism as I can via media, so documentaries, and I've tried to really make sure that my children understand that it's our duty. It's because we are so blessed here in
Yep.
America. Most of us are just like beyond blessed. It's our duty to not take that for granted and to pass it on. And even one of my philosophies is called Mentor One. And if you think about it, if each one of us took one little duckling under our wing, okay, not take over for the parent or whatever, kind of like a big sister, big brother program, but it doesn't have to be as formulaic as that. It can be the neighbor kid who you notice is, mopey a lot, and maybe bring over a gift card to an ice cream store, and have I don't know. I mean, I've done it in many different ways, and there's no one way, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. But if we all who are lucky and blessed can take one other human being and try to pass on the love, the patience, the understanding, the eardrums, I think we could really change our immediate world.
I absolutely agree with that. One person at a time.
Yeah,
We don't have to get 100 at a time. One person at a time.
right.
If you can impact and change one person's life, you have done your job,
That's right.
and you have made that difference. A lot of people are like, "How much of a difference can you make?" One person, and that next person will the next person, and that's how we get the ripple effect, and that's how we really change humanity, and we make a difference, and we make that change in the world that we are all needing and seeking, right?
Yes.
And that's what I do, is one tea at a time, and you're doing one story at a time. One, you
Yeah.
know, and you did mention, I've been listening as you're speaking. You mentioned Big Brother and Big Sister, and that is a really important program that I think that these books would really, really work well with.
100%. Yes. Yes. We need to, I really have to, I've been kind of overwhelmed with my project, my paycheck right now.
The paycheck, yeah, because you don't get rich on books. Anybody who's listening,
No, you don't. But that's okay. I'm sure I'll probably lose money in the end, but that's fine. But yeah, sorry, I forgot where I was going. I got stuck on my page. So the fact that I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to really reach out. So if anybody out there wants to help, goodness of your heart,
Yeah.
contact Big Brothers Business, contact the, social networks of Canada. I don't know anybody in Canada, for example. Please do. And I know my publisher will offer a deal to these bulk sales, to just get this book out there. So you don't necessarily have to buy 30 copies off of Amazon. We can
Yeah.
contact us, and we will contact the publisher, and they can help with those sorts of things too. So, but yeah, that's the goal. Is, I mean, yeah, it takes a village, people.
It does. It really does. And it only takes that one person, to get the ripple going.
Yeah.
Drop that one little drop and then just keep it going. And these books could be anywhere. They can be in hospitals, they can be in counselors' offices, they could be in services. They could be at events, community events that have children around. Sometimes a book is good to read when a parent's listening to a band playing music. The kid wants to tune out and read a book. It's a time to break the ice.
Another thing these books do are teach empathy. And so you could read this to a child who doesn't have a parent incarcerated, but they are going to learn about that. And so that one day when, the new neighbor comes by and tells them the story, it's about empathy too, right?
Yeah.
So they really kind of are for every child. because
Yeah.
every child needs to learn empathy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't even have to be going through it, right? Your parents don't even have to be incarcerated. You might have a friend that they're wondering why their dad comes in and out and their mom comes in, and the child doesn't know how to tell their friend, well, you know what, daddy's in jail or mommy, you know.
Right.
So these books would actually help other children as well, because I find that having friends, sometimes they have a hard time understanding the situation that their friend is in. So this would open that avenue as well and say, oh, I understand why he's so moody or why she's so moody or why she can't play or why they move so often, like the
Yes.
patterns. They would understand the patterns and cycles.
Yes.
Yeah, and incredible. And I love the characters' names like Nibbit and like, and Peanut. I love Peanut. Like
Yeah.
anybody who loves peanuts, come on, it's easy. It's
Yeah.
it's flowing and it's fun and
Right.
that.
Right. And again, every word was carefully chosen. Not only the names and the characters, but every word, in here is meant to not be judgmental, not necessarily, be gender specific. All so it really it was a labor of love for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to get into, before we wrap up your tea time, Rachel, I want to get into a little bit of the stuff that you're doing. You have your production company, Silky Pants. If you could share with the viewers and listeners what Silky Pants is all about.
Sure. Well, Silky Pants Productions is something that I started about, oh boy, 10 years ago. And what my mission is to bring innovative television programming to whomever wants to tell a story. Right now, I happen to be working on a show for OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and then I'm moving to another show for ABC and on and on. But my love is to tell these individual stories for my clients. I've done a couple of documentaries, and I've done web series for people, and so I'm kind of specialized in terms of I love to tell stories, and people who have great stories don't necessarily know how to share them, and so that's where my expertise comes in.
So you said it's been running for 10 years, Silky Pants
Yeah.
Productions?
Yeah.
Wow. So a whole decade.
Yeah, and I have a website, silkypantsproductions.com, where I have a list of clients, and I've worked with Academy Award winning actors and directors, and worked with a lot. I've had a very blessed career. Yeah. So if anybody is curious or even has questions about, hey, what does it take if I've got this great story, could I make a mini documentary? I just produced a mini documentary also during COVID. It was busy, so good for me. And regarding trafficking, and I took a story about a Hispanic woman who got tricked into coming to New York for a job. She was a young teen, or probably 17, if I recall, and got tricked into coming to New York for this great life, and then immediately became a sex slave. And it took her years because they threaten you. You learn so much about the predicament if it's told right in a 3-minute documentary, and I've won many awards throughout the world for it. So it can be done.
So if anybody would like to reach out to you, Rachel, to have you on their show, how could they reach out to you?
You can email me at rachel@silkypantsproductions.com. And so that's where you can get in touch with me, and I look forward to connecting for sure.
So Rachel, a little bit on your Hollywood life. You're a veteran of Hollywood. So you said over 30 years. So what was your biggest impact in all those 30 years of working with all these incredible people?
I took from almost every job something with me, a lesson that I've learned. It can also be it could have had a negative impact, and that's still a valuable lesson. I know
Yes.
what I don't want to do. I know how I won't treat people. And honestly, I've had people who have just been horrific to work for, to people that I consider, very dear, dear close friends, even though it was a work relationship. It's run the gamut. So how it's impacted me is, again, how I want to treat people, and how I want to be a leader. The best way to be a leader is not through fear. It is through trust and respect and a good laugh and maybe a little teasing. Um, so I think what I took from my all these years, including when I was a news anchor and reporter, was how I wanted to lead and how I wanted to treat people with respect. And I think that is something that I can honestly say, I'm still working on it, but I have achieved, and I'm really proud of the way that I interact with people.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing that. I was always curious, like how much of an impact, by working with all these people, because it is a busy life. Producing, directing is a bit busy life. You are on the go all the time. There's a lot of things in behind the scenes that people don't see, right? So
Yes.
they're like, oh, it's so easy. No, it's not easy. There's a lot of work behind it, right?
Yeah, and I
And
think there's a lot of mystery, like they say, producer, what does that mean exactly? Well, the truth is there are like 10 kinds of producers. There's the producer that manages money. There's the producer that just puts people together. There's the producer that's boots on the ground, making sure everybody shows up on the set. There's the producer that, writes and edits. So there's like all sorts of producers. I do several of those roles, but not all of them. So that's one thing that people are kind of unclear. And also directing can have, you can be the director of a film, where you're literally calling the shots, but you don't do a lot of the producing. And
yeah,
then the kind of directing that I do is a little more uh, spanned. I do some of the writing. I do some of the producing, but then I am directing the cameras. If they're like one camera or six cameras, I'm calling the shots. So it varies a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of a vast skill set.
well, I think for the listeners and viewers out there, there is a lot of, like you said, there's many different producers, different and directors and all that as well, right? There's not just one camera. There's like six, seven cameras. So, everybody,
Right.
it's you really have to have that teammate work environment, right? And you have to, like you said, have some humor because sometimes it gets a little heavy. Some of the work is heavy, so you want to have that little giggle or that little, oh, I'm going to poke on that person today, little pills boy, like a little ooh ooh, and let's get on and carry on,
I think
So
one of the things I've learned that could be implemented in like everyday life is that, when you're working on something, people tend to be like, it's all about this, and if I fail at this, the whole world's gonna blow up. And
yeah,
I'm on a set, and every episode is $1 million, so it's not nothing. But I when I see the people like panicking and freaking out around me, I go, people, this is television. This is not life or death. This is television. We are going to
yeah,
be okay. and and that's just a daughter in school who's stressed out because she failed the test. This is not your entire life. Okay,
yeah,
this is one thing.
yeah.
You're gonna survive. It's up to you. You're gonna.
You need a timeout.
You need a timeout. Where's that Long Island iced tea, Liz?
I don't know, but it's we could use one. We could really use one. So, Rachel, if you'd like to show the books, I'd love to see the covers of each of them
Yes.
so
Okay.
that the
So you
viewers can
saw
see that. For
Yeah.
all of the audio listeners that are out there, all of the information will be in the description, so you can see all of this incredible stuff. Go out and grab a book. And Christmas is coming around the corner. Get some early Christmas gift shopping and get some books for the kids for Christmas time.
Yeah.
I know we shouldn't be speaking about Christmas. We haven't even gotten into July yet. But sometimes there are those early shoppers out there that start in June to buy Christmas gifts. So,
Peanuts
and
time.
they're incredible. They're truly incredible, Rachel. Like the covers are
Thank you.
like really
Yeah.
beautiful, and the colors inside are so vibrant and playful too. And they're nice characters. Like they're not
Yeah,
like
they're beautifully. I hired this lovely Russian painter to do
oh
these,
wow,
and yeah, very talented. But that was the idea, and also they have the big trend now, because I think it's inexpensive, is to do these computer graphic books. No offense to anybody who has those computer graphic books, but they freak me out. I don't. I don't like.
I find them really hard to follow.
I just don't like to look at those kinds of drawings. It's personal. People are probably used to it, but that's why I really, really went for the beautiful hand painted detail of these books. I'm really just
and I like that they're pet friendly, like a bunny,
Yes.
and a puppy, and they're playful.
And an
right?
otter, one of my favorites.
Oh, that's an otter! I never even realized that was an otter.
Yeah, that's an otter. Yeah. So
and otters are known for holding each other and holding hands like that.
Yes, and this is named, but his name is Butters.
Oh.
And I actually named him after a Butters in my life who recently passed. So, anyway, yeah. Thank you. I love Mama. See, Mama's she took a fish she probably shouldn't have taken, but she just needed to, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes
so
we're
she
desperate.
needed a timeout.
Sometimes we do things because our children are hungry. Right. And we do things that we might not normally do. So there's just no shame. It's not like, oh, she stole something. But
and I think that's something that we should talk about, Rachel, is because a lot of people that are incarcerated maybe shouldn't be incarcerated,
I tried to stay away from the politics of this, but I think for the adults who get these books, I think that's an interesting conversation to have.
Right.
And also as we know, there are many unjustly incarcerated people who had a bad trial, and with some of the research that I got for this book was going to the Sentencing Project, and where they take as close account of who's in jail, what their demographic is, those who have been wrongfully committed, all sorts of things like that. So, I mean, you can jump in that hole and be there a while if you really want to find out some information.
Yeah. Now, do you think that these books would help after the incarceration?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's never too late to be educated. It's never too late to broach an uncomfortable subject, a difficult conversation. That's what adult therapy is about, right?
Right.
We deal with it as children, so now we go, and so absolutely, and and it could be that your 14-year-old is reading it to the 5-year-old, but the 14-year-old is getting a little something.
Yeah.
Is it geared for a 14-year-old? No, but does it make you think about empathy and understanding and acceptance and the realization that this is not your fault. None of this is your fault. Your mommy and daddy or big brother love you. They didn't leave because they don't love you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think so.
So, Rachel, do you have any plans to turn these into an emanation children's show?
Well, funny you mentioned.
Or am I?
Well, here's the thing. So I told you I worked with a lot of therapists, and they have talked to me about expanding the whole notion of adverse child experience. And so I think the idea is to continue with some more topics,
Okay.
and then yes, perhaps get these animated. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
For
because you do a lot of work on Discovery Channel as well, don't you?
yes, yeah, yeah. No, it's certainly something in the back of my mind,
In
Liz.
the back of the mind.
Yeah,
So there might be some spilled tea along the way that is
yeah,
coming, you
yeah.
know. And spilled tea is good news, you know. And we really need to start spilling and making a mess and start opening the doors and seeing things in a different light. So, Rachel, I really want to thank you for coming and sharing your tea and spilling your tea. For the viewers and listeners that are just tuning in, Rachel Nee shared about her 3 books called Time Out, Mommy Time Out, Daddy Time Out, and Peanut Time Out. So if you'd like to grab a copy, you're more than welcome to go to Amazon or check out her website and grab a copy. And if you know somebody who's going through this and that this book might help them, reach out and grab a copy. You never know what impact you might make by just grabbing a child's book, you know. And our goal tonight with this tea time is to open some doors and get these books into schools, libraries, social services, worldwide. Rachel's in the United States, I'm in Canada, so let's open some doors, let's get these books in there, and let's really make a difference, you know, one book at a time, and we will truly impact lives. So for anyone who would like to know more on Rachel, you can check out her website. And if you'd like to connect with Rachel and you are too scared to go through Rachel right away, I can kind of break the ice and I can do one-on-one and introduce you guys together. Rachel, again, thank you for joining me tonight on Tea Time. And thank you for bringing awareness to a subject that really needs awareness on. And for anybody who is out there and has any awareness on incarceration and or information that you would like to share with Rachel, reach out and share that with her as well. And I can't wait to see what you have in the back here because I know it'll be incredible because you have done some really incredible work. And for all the viewers and listeners out there that have tuned in tonight and will be tuning into the replay, because you can tune in anytime on Miss Liz's YouTube channel or on all of my platforms and check out the tea times and check out Rachel's Tea Time. And for the children out there, if you want a book called Time Out, let your mommy and daddy know. You know, it's okay to ask for a book if you want a book to understand for yourself. You know, sometimes children have a hard time asking, and you little ones out there, you can say, hey, I want that book for my birthday or I want it for Christmas. There's always a way to get these books out there. So again, for any of the social workers out there, children's services out there, hospitals, medical practitioners, hospitals, anything that is out there, if you can make a difference by getting this book into your service or in your area, we would really appreciate it. And Rachel would love to connect with you and get those books there for you. So again, Rachel, thank you so much for Tea Time. And thank you to all the viewers. And I will see you in July with 5 new incredible tea times with 5 incredible subjects to open up the awareness. And we will spill the TEA. So again, Rachel, thank you so much for Tea Time tonight.
Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate it.